Okay, this is your reading rock layers page 2. So this is just building on what we talked about on page 1. So you should know the law of superposition. Law of superposition states the older stuff's on the bottom and it gets younger as you go up. Now, they're also going to throw a couple different things in these rock cross sections to try to trip you up. One of the things they're going to throw in there is an extrusion. Now remember, X from your stems means out. So an extrusion is lava that hardens at the surface because it's come out of the ground. So that's an extrusion. Now, the rule for extrusions is just like the law of superposition. The law of superposition states that an extrusion is always younger than the layers below it. So it's just like, using the law of superposition. If it's below it, it means it's younger than it. If it's above it, it means it's older than it. Okay, so let's practice looking at some extrusions. So as you can see in this rock cross section below, there's an extrusion in there. Right there, it's called extrusion A. So answer these two questions. Is extrusion A older or younger than layer D? And is extrusion A older or younger than layer A? So pause the video, answer the questions, then check your answers by listening to the rest of the video. Okay, now that you've answered your questions, so look down there at extrusion A. Here's extrusion A. Is it older or younger than layer D? So you can see that extrusion A is closer to the bottom than layer D, so that makes extrusion A older because extrusion A had to be there for D to be on top of it. Now, question number 2, is extrusion A older or younger than layer A? So here's extrusion A, here's layer A. Extrusion A is closer to the top, so that means that extrusion A is younger. So extrusions are just like reading rock layers with using the law of superposition. There is no difference, okay? So remember that just because it says an extrusion doesn't mean anything different, okay? Now, here's the next thing, okay? The next thing they're going to throw at you is what's called an intrusion. And an intrusion is when magma pushes into bodies of rock, cools and hardens. So extrusion means it got out. Intrusion means it's still in. Okay, so here's the rule for intrusions. An intrusion is always going to be younger than the layers it cuts through. So for it to be able to cut through a layer, the layer must have already had to have been there. So therefore the intrusion is younger. It came after those layers. So think of it back in terms of your bed. If you put your frame down, you put your box spring down, then you put your mattress down, then you take a samurai sword and you cut it in half. If you cut that bed in half and then you put your sheets and your blanket on top, well, the cut came before. So it's just like that that intrusion pushed up through there. Okay. Now this will all make more sense whenever we look at the cross section in notes page 3 and we practice doing it. So just remember, law of superposition, older stuff's at the bottom, it gets younger as you go up, just like extrusions, and then intrusions are always younger than the layers they cut through.